The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio. What's up, nerds? ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. New York City. Do the Knicks have a new hope? We're going to get into that in a few minutes. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. By the way, I'm going to tell you how real the Los Angeles Rams are as a threat to win the Super Bowl this year, a little bit later on, LA. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. ESPN Nation's presented by Dr. Pepper. The college football season's heating up, and so is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Giannis got his money. Almost $250 million. Did he make a mistake? You sign a contract for almost $250 million, you almost cannot make a mistake by definition. What do you have to do for the money? I mean, congratulations, Giannis, by the way, who's made $100 million in his career already. Now he just got another $250 million coming. And the sick thing is, because there's a salary cap and a max contract, in fact, he's necessarily underpaid. In other words, he's worth more than they're giving him because they're not allowed to give him more. If they were allowed to give him more, some other team would give him more than the Bucks. And New York, by the way, that's one of the reasons the Knicks stink. Because usually incompetent management or ownership in New York City, you can buy your way out of it. You may not buy championships, that's hard, but at least you can buy your way into respectability, right? But the convoluted nature of a salary cap league causes all kinds of problems. And especially an incompetently run franchise like the Knicks. By the way, I'll give this new Knicks front office, this new regime, a little while. They deserve a little while to see what they can do. But this is how Dolan operates. That miserable owner, Dolan. This is how he operates. Every couple of years, it's a new regime, and then you have to give him a chance. And guys like me come out and say, hey, give him a chance. And everyone's like, give him a chance. And 2 or 3 years later, it's a new regime because the last one didn't work out. Because a fish rots from the head down, and what the Knicks have is a rotten fish head. Anyway, Giannis got his money to stay in Milwaukee. Never, attract top free agents. It's never happened before. Never. Cleveland, because LeBron was born in Akron. Grew up in Akron. So he re-signs with Cleveland eventually, but he only does it because they wind up with Kyrie and enough assets to get Kevin Love. And he's from there. Boy, the Bucks better hope the next superstar coming up is from Milwaukee and really wants to play there. Because they're not going to get a guy like that. It just doesn't happen. The only desirable markets, and for people living in Milwaukee who are going, hey, what's wrong with Milwaukee? What I mean by that is desirable to an NBA superstar. So what does that mean? It means a warm weather, not just to an NBA superstar, to everyone, for these reasons. Warm weather, guys prefer the warm weather. I've lived in New York and LA. I can tell you the warm weather's better. I like the seasons and everything, but, when it's sunny 300 days a year, that helps. So, LA, Miami, but also places like with just good weather, like San Francisco, Silicon Valley's right there too. You can just hot weather even if it's not perfect, Texas, Houston, Dallas. Warm weather places, that's one. 2, if you don't have warm weather, and maybe even if you do, a cosmopolitan place, not just a metropolitan place, but a kind of big, important cultural center that has some cachet. That's good to maneuver with these guys' brands, right? And plus, there's something to be said for the kind of desirability to live in that kind of market anyway. And that's not Milwaukee. It's metropolitan. I wouldn't call it cosmopolitan. And then, of course, do you live in a tax-free state, a no-tax state, no state income tax? So that applies to some states, but not Wisconsin. Milwaukee is in a tough spot. So how do they build a team? They need to draft well, hope someone's a superstar that they can pick in the draft. That happened, Giannis. And then you have to never play yourself cheap. Any asset you have to pay and hold on to. And you got to be willing to pay luxury tax. You're being subsidized by the rich markets, right? So you got to use that money to reinvest in your team. Because unlike the NFL with a hard cap, when people yell at owners for not paying players, I'm always thinking, but they're not lining their pockets with that money. All the owners spend the same, give or take, in the NFL. What are people talking about? But in the NBA, you have a soft cap, so you also have a luxury tax. In other words, you can pay your own players to keep them, but then you may have to pay a luxury tax. And Milwaukee didn't want to pay that. They played everyone cheap. They wanted to take the money that they make forget about the fact it's a real estate deal and the equity constantly increases in all these teams in the NBA. The Milwaukee owners also wanted to operate at a profit and take the money that the rich teams pay into the luxury tax and gets redistributed and line their own pockets with it. That's what happened. So they let Brogdon leave. And Brogdon was not a great player, but a good player. And even if they felt they had to overpay for him, he would be an asset going forward that you could use in a deal to get a superstar in there to play next to Giannis. Now, remember what I've said in the past. A great big always needs a guy who's just about as good as him, who's not a big, a ball handler, a playmaker. Kareem needed Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson. He got 6 championships with them, 0 without. Shaq needed Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade. 4 championships with them, 0 without. Even Penny Hardaway, who was a great player, was not good enough. Penny was great. He wasn't Shaq great. Kobe and Wade were basically Shaq great. He got chips with them. That's how it works. AD had Drew Holiday. Didn't come near a championship. Got with LeBron James, got a championship. He had another guy, not a big, just as great as him, or better. And that's what Giannis really needs. But they were unable to do it. They didn't do it. They didn't have Brogdon to use in a deal. Chris Paul was available this offseason. They didn't get him. I love me some Drew Holiday. But Drew Holiday's a combo guard. And Chris Paul can also play off the ball. Why not? What's wrong with having Drew Holiday and Chris Paul? Now, all of a sudden, you would look at that team and say, oh, yeah, maybe they're going to win the championship this year. But I can tell you, I don't think they will. Even had they gotten Bogdanovich, and they blew that. They had the deal done, and then it got undone. But even Bogdanovich, who's a very good player, with his shooting and his passing, even Bogdanovich with Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton, anyone would pick them to beat the Lakers? How many? Not many. I think we all agree that the Lakers would probably win. So that was a problem. But having made that mistake already, the Bucks owners, like the way the CBA is organized now, is structured now, if you've been with the same team the whole time, it used to be no max-type player ever left before 7 years or 6 years when they could demand a trade because you leave too much money on the table. And now the NBA's deal, the way they've structured things, is harder and harder for a player to leave after even 6 or 7 years because they're going to leave a lot of money on the table. The Supermax extension, the Supermax contract, if you played X number of years on the same team, you're a max contract player, you're already making the max, results in these kind of contracts, like what Damian Lillard got and Giannis got. And by the way, it keeps superstars in their markets, those who are inclined to stay. A guy like LeBron or KD or Harden, they're thinking, I got to get a championship, right? KD was like, I got to get a championship. I'll leave some money on the table. I'll go to Golden State. I want to win. It's too important to me. But guys like Giannis and Lillard, I don't think it's any less important for them that they win. But they had a real sense that I think they saw, first of all, it's their nature of their personalities, but they also saw the way people reacted to Kevin Durant ring chasing. Now, KD deserves a lot of praise for going to Brooklyn because that wasn't a that's in the bag type move, right? He's going to have to go out and do it now. And, of course, he has Kyrie. I mean, everyone needs a crime partner, of course. But the KD going to the Golden State Warriors was ridiculous. It's like they won 73 games. They should have won the chip. You add an MVP caliber player, they can't lose, and they couldn't. They didn't. I think Giannis saw that and thought, it's important to win championships, but to stay where I am and win a championship, that's a big thing. And when you combine that with the fact that he'd lose tens and tens of millions of dollars had he walked out the door, you see what happened. Now the question is, can he win a chip with the Bucks? Because no one's ever going to sign there. Not a top free agent. Do they have enough to win? is Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton enough to get Giannis over the top? I'm telling you they're not. I love Drew Holiday. He did they played great defense as a team on Damian Lillard a couple years ago. The Pelicans did. But Drew Holiday was the guy on Lillard. He did as good a job as a defender could possibly do, and he's a big shot maker with the chips on the line. And Middleton in a good year is an all-star. And Brook Lopez in a good year can really stretch the floor and defend the rim. But you're hoping DiVincenzo turns into a real guy now. And even that might be enough. It's so gangster to win a championship in the NBA. It's so hard to do. You need, ideally 2 MVP caliber players. And even then, you better get the details right. The Lakers not only had maybe the 1 and 2 best players in the world last year, they got the details right in addition to that and won a championship. But that's what it takes. Kawhi and Paul George and a nice supporting cast with Montrezl Harrell and Patrick Beverley and all these. Lou Williams, not enough. Not enough couldn't get out of the second round. Because you run into a Denver team with Jamal Murray and Jokic both playing at near MVP levels, and you got an ascending star in Porter Jr. Everywhere you look in the league, you got these, several all-stars or near MVPs playing together. Giannis is an MVP caliber player. Is there a single other player on that team that is a perennial all-star? There's not. And Andre Snellings was on, of ESPN fame, was on this show yesterday telling me that the structure of the Bucks is such he believes, they have Drew Holiday now as a shot maker and they can keep defenses honest. They won't just be able to wall up, against Giannis, and that'll be the difference. He believes they'll win a championship in the next 3 years. I don't unless they have an ace up their sleeve. That was Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. Keyshawn Johnson joins me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Key, you like what you saw from Lamar the other night? No, it's not just fine. He came out, those were high stakes. I've mentioned on this show many times, he's almost undefeated, even against good teams. He's beaten a ton of good teams in his life. But when the lights shine brightest, no, what I'm saying is my beef with Lamar is not he can't beat you from the pocket. No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying you got to beat the Chiefs if you're in the AFC. You got to beat the Roethlisberger Steelers if you're the Ravens, and you got to win in the playoffs, and he's 0 for 6 in those situations. So here he is, Monday Night Football, spotlights on him, has to come out with cramps. They bring him back on 4th down. Baker and them are feeling themselves. The Browns are coming up in the world. Their playoff hopes are on the line, and he came through. I haven't seen that yet, Key. Yeah, look, I'm with it. I don't, you win how you win. And when you consider his age, who else is his age? Sam Darnold. Think about that. People are like, can one day Sam Darnold develop into Lamar's already been a league MVP? Yeah, I'm with that. That's great. But what I loved seeing. Yeah, right. Yeah. Adam Gase, who's the happiest dude in the world? When Hugh Jackson looks at Adam Gase, he goes, oh, thank God. Oh, they've forgotten all about me. Adam Gase is unbelievable. He's in a class by himself right now. But, Key, this is what I'm saying. It's one thing. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, these guys have bright moments, and here's one for him. but especially on a Monday night game where the Browns really need to beat either the Ravens or the Steelers. You know, they have the game in hand. Lamar Jackson goes out. As soon as he goes out, the Browns come back on him, and they take the lead. And to come in on 4th down and to throw a strike for a 44-yard play that results in a touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown. You see Baker on the sidelines nodding like, okay, my turn. Leads them right down the field. They score again. And then Lamar takes over, 4 consecutive completions, and they kick the field goal to win. I have not seen a game like that from him in his career. I think it bodes well, not only for this next stretch of games where they need to win them all to make the playoffs probably, but maybe even in the playoffs.
Up 47 points, they certainly can win.
That's something I do like about Lamar. You know, they say youth is wasted on the young. To hear Michael Vick talk now, he's like, almost shaking his head like, man, I didn't, like he took it for granted early on. And you can think of Lamar as Vick 2.0 or maybe 3.0 because RG3 got in there for a minute. But Lamar is like a dude with that kind of next-level talent who's not taking it for granted. It seems like he has leadership skills, like his teammates like him, like they can rally around him, and like he knows what it takes. And now the question is, can he be accurate enough down the field when they need him to be? Because they're not always going to be playing with a lead key. He's going to have to do that sometimes. I saw him do it Monday night, but he's going to have to repeat that.
He is, and I think he'll be able to. The more he does it, the more comfortable he gets, and the more Houdini-like performances he'll have.
Now, here's the question. I've heard you defend this quarterback also. Jared Goff and the Los Angeles Rams. Key, I love what I'm seeing from the Rams. And when you look at the quality of their wins recently, the teams they're playing and beating and shutting down, it really is impressive. They've beaten a whole bunch of good teams, including, I want to say, They lost that game to the Niners. The Niners played good defense.
Divisional opponent.
They beat who? Arizona, the Patriots. They beat the Bucks. They beat a lot of good teams. What do you think the Rams' Super Bowl chances are?
They go as far as Jared Goff goes. As long as he doesn't trick it off with turnovers, they'll be right there in the mix. It'll be interesting because what they should hope and pray for, though, is that, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. Well, I guess it does matter. They really need to try to figure out how to get home field advantage because if Jared Goff has to go on the road in a cold environment like a Seattle or a Green Bay, it can get tough on him. Going back down to Tampa or going into New Orleans, and that's not – I mean, that's warm weather, right? Those other two spots, it gets cold and slippery. He doesn't play well in the cold.
Speaking of which, given the fact that the Saints were shocked by an Eagles team where the quarterback, look at that, wasn't trying to do too much, just doing what the coach asked, and they wound up winning the game. I guess it wasn't all the offensive line with the Eagles. But anyway, the Saints got to be worried about the Packers right now. Like, to me, Key, when I look at the teams that really need that bye, there's only one bye in each conference this year. I think the Saints could get out of the NFC. Not if they have to go to Green Bay. That what you just said about the Rams, to me, like the Saints are a different team at home. And who do they have this week? The Kansas City Chiefs. What do you see?
Ooh, I want to know what's going to happen at the quarterback spot. Is it Taysom Hill or is it Jameis Winston? Because it won't probably be Drew Brees, right? And I think when you look at what happened in Philly, that team got energized with Jalen Hurts. I don't have them going into Kansas City and beating the Chiefs. That game's in Kansas City, right?
Where is the game? That's a good question. Raj will find out. Raj, why don't you get
Raj,
right on
do
that?
Something besides waking me up out my
New
nap.
Orleans. Yeah, it's in New Orleans.
Oh, okay. So that's
it's
better.
It's
better
in New
for
Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's better for New Orleans. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the quarterback spot because, they're going to have to match that intensity that Kansas City's going to bring. Kansas City's spotting people points nowadays, man. They spotted Miami 10, 14 points and went and got them.
So, wait.
It's like, oh, yeah, here you go.
So you're saying
you can have these points. We come get you later.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's like they're toying with teams. But this is something Casey Joyner, the football scientist, says on this show, Key, that, in fact, you want a shootout with the Chiefs. That, in fact, that gives you the best chance. And Jameis would seem to be the quarterback to engage in a shootout. High risk because he was going to turn the ball over and, you're probably going to lose a shootout with the Chiefs, but you're probably going to lose anyway. Are you saying that Jameis gives you a better chance to win in a shootout with the Chiefs than Taysom Hill does in a kind of ball control offense against the Chiefs?
I think so. Because the Chiefs.
Yeah, I might think so too. Actually,
they gonna score some points. Man, they're going to put that thing up in the air, indoors. Oh man, he's going to let it fly.
Yeah, and he might turn the ball over, and they might wind up. But you're probably going to lose anyway. You might as well load up and see what you can do. Is Key gone? Is Key still there? Raj ruthlessly cuts Keyshawn Johnson off. Ruthless, Raj. Didn't you used to produce Key on the radio, Raj?
Yeah.
Keyshawn Johnson joined us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Please tell Key that I say thank you for appearing on the show. We like to treat our guests well in spite of Raj's he's an inveterate rudeness. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Is there a new hope for the Knicks? 'Twas the end of the year and it's been less than fun, but as your business grows, you need to hire for 2021. Make hiring much faster and easier. Dolphins in trouble with Bill Belichick? You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. So the kid from Brooklyn, see, finally gets his shot on Broadway. Obi Toppin, the 8th pick in last month's draft, who makes his Garden debut Wednesday against the Cavs in the Knicks preseason home opener, is very excited, of course. And Knicks fans are excited to watch him. And by the way, he has a chance to be a very good NBA player. The poor Knicks, man. And by that, I don't mean, the franchise. I don't root for them anymore because of Jim Dolan, the worst owner in the NBA. But just look at the futility as owner of that team. Not to mention banning Charles Oakley from the Garden and having fans thrown out for having signs saying you're a bad owner, Jim Dolan, all that stuff. But no, I can go on. Remember I have a place out on Long Island and not being able to get Yankees games because he wouldn't carry Yes Network because they turned down an MSG deal and decided to make their own network and not pay him. It goes on and on with Dolan. Anyway, the point is this. The Knicks are also unlucky. It is possible to be a bad organization. Luck is the residue of design, as Branch Rickey said, the GM who helped break the color barrier in Major League Baseball with Jackie Robinson. Luck is the residue of design. But it is possible to independently have bad luck on top of being a bad franchise. Who are they going to take in the draft once they picked where they did? They're not going to get Zion. They're not going to get Ja Morant. They wind up with R.J. Barrett. Nice player, might turn into something eventually, but he ain't there yet, and it doesn't look like he's going to be a perennial all-star, the kind of player they need. Forget about MVP, even a perennial all-star. Obi Toppin, will he, could he be an all-star caliber player? Yeah, it's possible that he becomes a guy like that. It is possible. And he's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be amazing, Toppin said on a Zoom call Tuesday. I'm from here. Accented the wrong word. Not I'm from here. For that, I could accent the I'm. I'm from here. Ridiculous. I'm from here. I've been watching the Knicks my whole life. My family's been a fan of the Knicks since I wasn't even born. Me having an opportunity to step on the court with these guys and compete against another team is going to be amazing. I can't wait for that time to come. Think about this, Knicks fans. You fools. Why aren't you Nets fans by now? But think about this for a second. Because I was once a passionate Knicks fan. I stayed online. Back in the day, you could get playoff tickets. You had to show up the night before. for those who didn't have season tickets, you could show up the night before, basically camp out on a line that went around the block by the Garden. And everyone could buy, I think, 2 tickets. So my late great brother Sam and I waited all night. We would get there, wait all night, and each get 2 tickets. So we'd have 4 tickets to the game. There was nothing I wouldn't have done for the Knicks. Now imagine, a lot of you still feel that way for some insane reason. Just imagine for a second that not only did you feel that way about the Knicks, but that you could do something about it. Like a lot of times you think of yourself, oh, it'd be a dream to play for this team that I root for. But in the case of a team like the Knicks, a moribund franchise for so long, it's not just that you get to play for them, it's that you get to try to do something about all the losing, to actually be a part of restoring the franchise. Now think about what's going through Obi Toppin's mind right now. You're excited because he's an exciting player to watch, and he has a chance to be a very good NBA player. But from his point of view, it's like, damn, man, the Knicks are a laughing stock. But he's there now, and he can actually do something about it. James Harden dropped 12 in his preseason debut, but he didn't talk to the media. He's violating, which is a violation of the NBA's media access rule, because he didn't make himself available to reporters afterward. The Rockets won 112-98, if you care, over the Spurs. And he avoided answering questions about his, as a result, about his desire to be traded. And even his teammates say they don't bring it up with him. Tim McMahon of ESPN, in a very interesting article, said that reported that the Rockets created a culture that gave James Harden all the power. Quote, whatever James wants. How Harden has controlled Houston's every move after years of catering to James Harden. The Rockets are at a crossroads. Just James being James, they're saying. Inside Harden's cumulative impact on the Rockets' culture. This is on ESPN.com right now. And Tim McMahon's a good reporter, and he wrote a very interesting article. And I don't want to say anything like Tim McMahon is being played for a useful idiot or anything like that, because I don't think that's the case. I do think, because sometimes teams will do that. They'll take someone from the press and they'll leak information, and they become a mouthpiece for the team. That's not what's going on here. McMahon talked to a lot of people and did a very good job. But I do notice that this basic idea is everywhere this morning. ESPN, The Ringer, a million different places are basically writing the same thing about how James Harden has been entitled and the team helped kind of spoil him the way a parent might spoil a child, right? And then there was a quote in McMahon's article like, if you give the kid candy every day and then one day you don't give him candy and the kid starts crying, that's not the kid's fault, that's your fault. A little condescending, don't you think? But I would say this. I don't think it's coincidental that everyone's suddenly writing the same article. It seems like the team's leaking stuff to try to discredit Harden. And for those who say, yeah, but what if it's true? I'm sure it is true. I'm sure it's true. I mean, I would suppose. So what? Harden still showed up and got busy. The Rockets, who were severely under-talented compared to other teams in the Western Conference, like, for example, the Golden State Warriors, nevertheless had the best record in the league a couple years ago and hosted a Game 7 against those Warriors. Not a Warriors team pre-Kevin Durant or post-Kevin Durant. Not a Warriors team missing Steph or Clay or KD. But a fully loaded Warriors team that just won 73 games and then added KD, had KD, Clay, Steph, Dre. I think Iggy was available for that series, if I'm recalling, maybe not. But that was a loaded team. What was the Rockets doing hosting a Game 7? What were they doing hosting a Game 7 against that team? And by the way, the Rockets went 0 for 27 from 3 during one stretch. They did not have Chris Paul. Harden was playing without Chris Paul, had a hamstring. And still, they only lost by single digits in the worst shooting performance in the history of basketball. Against those Warriors, how's that possible? Well, one, Harden's a great player, deserves a lot of credit. And two, this is what happens when Daryl Morey's your GM and Mike D'Antoni's the coach. So Tillman Fertitta, the owner, who's appeared on First Take, a nice guy, and we've talked, and he was a fan of First Take in the show, and he wants to win, and he expressed that to us and to the public on the show. Morey and D'Antoni weren't good enough because they weren't winning championships. Well, now Tillman Fertitta's finding out how the rest of the teams live without Daryl Morey. Soon as Morey walks out the door, all hell breaks loose. Is that coincidence? Or did Morey jump a sinking ship? I think if Fertitta would have kept Morey on, they'd be all right now. James wouldn't be demanding a trade, and Morey would be thinking how to improve the team. Now, here's the real issue. If you don't already have a superstar, good luck getting one. It's hard to get a singular kind of talent. Morey identified Harden when he was still a sixth man, brought him on to be a superstar. It turns out he was a superstar, brought D'Antoni on. Remember, everyone was like, well, can Harden really be a point guard? Yes. And took an inferior team and almost beat the Warriors. By the way, how good was that Warriors team? Well, the Cleveland Cavaliers had LeBron James and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love and couldn't get a whiff. The Warriors smoked them, but they couldn't smoke the Rockets. Couldn't do that. So anyway, Tillman Fertitta, look, he's gotten rid of Daryl Morey. No more Mike D'Antoni. Now Harden wants out. And suddenly there are articles everywhere about how Harden is entitled, and it's almost like, well, the Rockets were too nice, darn it. They can't be this nice to their star players. Here are the options. Either you're going to have a superstar and he's going to be entitled, or you won't have a superstar and you won't compete. That's the NBA. Welcome to it, Tillman Fertitta and the Houston Rockets. Is there a new threat to the Chiefs in the AFC? No doubt coming up. Free shipping is great. Free shipping, no minimum. That's the Walmart Plus magic for your holiday. Get all your last-minute shopping done with free next-day or two-day shipping today. Gonna get right down to it.
We got you covered.
Let me tell you what I think it is.
No doubt.
All right.
What
What we got, Raj?
Let's take a listen to our friend Bill Belichick.
Pretty experienced quarterback in terms of passing game and what they did at Alabama. He gets rid of the ball very quickly, doesn't hold it much, sees coverage as well, taking good care of the ball, hasn't thrown the ball to the defense, sees what he's got, understands the pressure, understands the timing of routes, gets the ball out quickly, and has enough quickness in the pocket to make it difficult for the pass rush to get to him. He can run a little bit, but he's more, I would say, of a quicker guy in the pocket that's elusive and really wants to throw more than he wants to run. Again, he can run, but he really is a good passer and wants to get the ball out quickly into the passing game. He does a pretty good job of that.
Uh-oh.
So that's Bill Belichick talking
That's
about
a lot
Tua
of praise
Tagovailoa.
That's a
What's
lot
the
of
question?
praise for him. Tua and the Dolphins are in trouble versus Belichick this week.
I think the Patriots are going to win, no doubt.
Yeah.
I think they're going to win. I thought they were going to beat the Rams, and they lost because they just don't have a lot of talent. But I feel like the Patriots are going to keep us kind of titillated throughout the season. And I'm expecting the best performance they got. By the way, you hear how Belichick talks about Tua? It's nothing fancy. The reason Belichick can win without talent, or without a lot of talent, the reason people don't like what he does in the draft, for example, is he's looking for players who can do what he needs them to do. And when he looks at a quarterback, he says, okay, can you read coverages? Can you understand things? Can you get rid of the ball quickly? Can you move around in the pocket? It's never like he has the best arm or he's the most accurate passer or, oh, my God, he's the fastest guy. Tua can get the job done, and that's what. And by the way, I noticed how Belichick says he hasn't thrown the ball to the defense. Belichick's teams make fewer mistakes than the other team, and that's why I expect them to win a tough
Check
game.
this out. I don't know if you knew this, but Rogue One was released 4 years ago today. Rogue One is
followed by Star Wars, then Empire, then Return of the Jedi. The next three movies, the prequels, got a bad rap. Because it's the kind of thing where, like, people threw out the baby with the bathwater. There was enough to be bad. There was enough, cringeworthy about them that people didn't like them. But the problem with the first three Star Wars was not ideas. It was execution. And there was worthwhile stuff in there. How does a republic become an empire? We kind of almost experienced that recently in this country, right? It was prophetic in that way because it understood history. The following Star Wars, since Lucas sold the franchise, are fun movies, but they don't seem to be a continuation of the original Star Wars to me. They don't seem to have the same kind of ideas in them. So I would say Rogue One because it's not part of the canon. It's an offshoot. is easily the best one since
Plus,
the
with
original
Rogue One, the
trilogy.
main thing about that, there was true sacrifice. Not one hero made it to the end of the movie, and you got the best 20 seconds.
They couldn't,
20
right?
seconds of Darth Vader you ever seen, boy. That was menacing.
I want to see Ahsoka Tano in one of these Star Wars. Ahsoka's from
Clone Wars.
Yeah, Ahsoka's from Clone
She's
Wars,
in
the cartoon series. I watched it with my kids.
She made an appearance 2 weeks ago, dog.
I haven't seen this season. I only saw last season. I love The Mandalorian. It's a Western in outer space. But I haven't seen this season yet.
Right. Real quick, Brown's a legit threat to
Boba
the
Fett.
Chiefs.
Come on, Jay. That whole Fett thing, boy, that's the best thing going. The Mandalorians are the best thing going. Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. I got more on Harden and the Rockets. You keep listening. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. In an article filed to ESPN this morning, written by Tim McMahon of ESPN, the Rockets created a culture that gave James Harden all the power, whatever James wants. How Harden has controlled Houston's every move. After years of catering to James Harden, the Rockets are at a crossroads, just James being James inside Harden's cumulative impact on the Rockets' culture. Isn't this interesting how this drops this morning, along with a lot of other articles? You can look around. Go Google it. Everywhere, it's the same article. James Harden was running the show, and he had too much power. And when you see that, that's coordinated on the part of the team. That's leaking from the team. Now, I don't want to disparage Tim McMahon's reporting. He did a very good job. And he talked to a number of people and also presented a different point of view. In other words, it wasn't just Tim McMahon saying, bad James Harden. He exposed the idea that a lot of people in the organization were like, yup, he had a lot of power, and look, we were winning. Yeah, he'd go party in Vegas. He'd come back and drop 50. And they're not wrong. And by the way, is it possible that Harden would have been an even more effective player and leader had he not done those other things? Yeah. You can't prove a counterfactual. In other words, you can't say what if and then know what would have happened. You just don't know. Maybe he's the kind of guy who needs to blow off steam like that in order to be effective, and he'd be worse if he didn't get to do that. But it's reasonable to suggest or assume that he could have led more effectively without kind of that level of power, because with that level of power comes corruption. The idea is, the power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power. So when that's the idea of checking someone's power to make sure they're not too powerful, because it will be a corrupting influence on their own personality. And if James Harden's having everyone wait for him and stuff like that, that's not good. It's not good. And yet, he was one of the best players in the league the last bunch of years. What's happening now, more than that, the real story, I'm going to tell you the real story of what's happening with the Rockets and why all this is happening. But first, let me tell you another 6 minutes, we have Tim Hardaway, senior, the original Tim Hardaway, 5-time All-Star, one of the most savage crossovers of all time, and the motor of one of the most fun teams to watch in NBA history, run TMC. With Chris Mullin and who am I forgetting? Latrell, right? No,
yes.
Mitch Richmond. Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullin. I don't know why I'm having a brain freeze. Anyway.
No, I always thought Weber was a part of that, but he wasn't. He came after, right? Yeah.
No. Yeah. No. Weber wasn't in. No, could you imagine? Wait a minute. Maybe he was. I'm forgetting who the hell was in TMC. I got to go look. The point is, Tim Hardaway was a truly great player in his best. You want to talk about why I hate the Knicks so much? This is being a Knicks fan. One offseason, it was like the Knicks have the cap space to get Tim Hardaway, Reggie Miller, and Charles Barkley, or two of those three. And they wound up, instead of Tim Hardaway, Reggie Miller, and Charles Barkley, they wound up with Chris Childs instead of Tim Hardaway. Allen Houston, who was an excellent player, but not Reggie Miller. And Larry Johnson, who I loved, but he won Charles Barkley. So they wound up with Chris Childs, Allen Houston, and Larry Johnson. And guess what happened? They didn't win a championship. Who could have seen that coming? Anyway, Hardaway was the guy that got away from it. And by the way, he wound up, Pat Riley went to Miami, and so Hardaway winds up in Miami with Alonzo Mourning. And they didn't win a championship either, but from nothing, the Miami Heat were suddenly powerhouses, used to give the Knicks hell in the playoffs. Okay, anyway, let me tell you what's going on with the Rockets. What's going on is Tillman Fertitta bought the team and wants to win a championship. And what he saw was the Rockets running up against the reality that they simply didn't have enough talent. They weren't a good enough team. Now, that's true of almost every team that ever existed that didn't have one of the best or the second best player in the world. And the truth about James Harden is he's never been the best or second best player in the world. Never, ever, never, never, never close. Harden's never been close to the best player in the world. James Harden has never spent a day of his life better than LeBron James or Kevin Durant. And I'll tell you the truth, I'll take Kawhi Leonard or Giannis over Harden too. And I'll take Steph over Harden. But before you get to those guys, LeBron James has always clearly and by a billion light years been ahead of James Harden. They're not comparable players. And LeBron is taller, faster, jumps higher, he's a better passer. But Harden is one of the most skilled scorers you'll ever see, and he's worked on his defense diligently, and he's become a really underrated defender, and he's a great player. But when you don't have that singular superstar like a LeBron James, if your guy is Harden and LeBron has help, boy, you need a lot of help because LeBron's way better than Harden. Steph is better than Harden too. And Steph had Clay and Dre and Iguodala, and it wasn't enough. Let's be honest. They never would have beaten the Cavs if Kyrie and Kevin Love didn't get hurt that first year. They went to Game 6 with Dellavedova as LeBron's second-best player. They'd have lost, certainly, sure, 100%. They would have lost to the Cavs had they been healthy. But they squeaked by and won. Next year, they were like one of the best teams in history, most wins ever in a regular season. Cavs beat them. So even Clay and Dre and Iggy weren't enough help for Steph Curry. They had to go get Kevin Durant. But once they got Durant, who's better than all those guys, there was no stopping the Warriors. The Cavs got smoked in consecutive seasons in the finals by the Warriors. Never had a chance. Never had a chance. We're never in the series. Smoked. And that's with LeBron James as the best player in the world, with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love on his team. So how is it that little James Harden, not as good as LeBron or KD, or Steph in my opinion, how is it that he was able, with Chris Paul as his second best player, who's a great player, but Chris Paul had a hamstring injury in Game 7 against the Warriors, and then guys like Trevor Ariza and, Clint Capella, nice players, but so under-talented compared to the Warriors. How was it that they were able to host a Game 7 at Houston against those Warriors that smoked the Cavs, the KD Warriors? It's because Daryl Morey is not only a really excellent GM, but he has guts. He's like, yep, we're going to run the most efficient offense possible. I'm going to get the coach that's going to do it in D'Antoni. I don't care about the criticism. We're just going to go for it. So people like Fertitta got spoiled. They're like, boy, we're getting really close, but we can't get over the hump. I need a better coach and GM so that we can get over the hump. Guys, the only reason Fertitta even was in a position to be greedy enough as a competitor to want more is because that Rockets team overachieved by so much. It's ridiculous. Think of that roster. That wasn't a talented enough roster. It wasn't a more talented roster than the Cavs. Not even close. And yet they were a much bigger threat to the Warriors. Why? Because you had a brilliant GM and an excellent coach who were willing, they had the courage of their convictions. And James Harden's a superstar. He's a great player. Now it wasn't enough for Fertitta. D'Antoni's gone, and then Daryl Morey left, and now all hell breaks loose. And you see, in fact, the Rockets are far away from a championship, and Harden doesn't want to be there. It's not about Harden being spoiled. It's about the owner, understandably being competitive, wanting more, but not realizing that the only reason he's in a position to pine to get over the hump, he's only even up to the hump because Daryl Morey got him there. Now Daryl Morey's in Philadelphia. Watch what happens. Watch what happens. Because when Morey got to Houston, they didn't have talent. He had to go get the talent. But in Philly, he's starting with the talent. Watch what happens. My guest now, one of my all-time favorite players, certainly when I was a kid. The guy I wanted the Knicks to get so bad, I'm still mad. The great Tim Hardaway, 5-time NBA All-Star. Tim, Raj and I started literally getting confused about TMC. We're like, wait a minute, was that Chris Webber or Chris Mullin? Was that Sprewell or Mitch Richmond? Who the hell was in TMC?
Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin.
That's what I said originally. Good, I got it right. But you guys were so much fun to watch. So much fun to watch. Then Tim, first, before we get into anything else, tell me the story real quick about not winding up with the Knicks. That killed me. It was. They wound up, instead of you, they got Chris Childs, and I was like, are you kidding? If you give Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley, Tim Hardaway, and Allen Houston or Reggie Miller, what? They'll win a championship. What happened? Were you ever close to coming to the Knicks? Did you want to go to the Knicks?
Well, the Knicks was in a conversation with my great agent, Henry Thomas, rest his soul. And they signed Chris Childs. As soon as free agency was ready, they signed Chris Childs. And that was the end of us talking to the New York Knicks. And I just stayed with the Miami Heat. But I was looking to at least talk to the New York Knicks, but it never did happen.
So you sound like you weren't going to come, actually. You just wanted to talk to them to jack the price up. Is that true, or would you have actually come?
I would have came if they would have offered me, something. I probably would have been there. I probably would have been a New York Knick, at that particular time because, Pat, he was wanting to go after Gary Payton and some other guys. And, he knew that he always had me, because I was their free agent, in the back pocket. So that's the way that went. Just like now, you look at all the other free agents and you try to get them, you try to see what you get, and then, you come back to your guy. So, yeah, that's the way it was.
Oh, that drives me nuts. Tim Hardaway, Allen Houston, Larry Johnson, Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing. Oof.
Yeah.
Oof. That maybe could have done something. All right. So Giannis re-signs, Tim, speaking about coming back to your own guy, almost $250 million. But my thing, Tim, is, they played Milwaukee cheap when they let Brogdon go. So now they can't, use him as a trading asset. I love me some Drew Holiday, but they botched the Brogdon, the Bogdanovich deal. So now it's Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton and Giannis. I don't think that's enough, Tim. Like, I saw Drew, who's a great playoff performer, but I saw him with AD. They didn't get close. Do you think Giannis is going to win a chip with Milwaukee?
You know what? If they put the right pieces around him, Brogdon, I don't know why he didn't come. I don't know why he went to free agency. I guess he had more money. But that's his right. He knew what he had to do. And getting traded to Milwaukee wasn't going to give him the right money. And I think, he's in a great situation. I can't be mad at him. You with Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks, they put something beautiful together. So I cannot be mad at him. But
you're talking about Bogdanovich.
Yeah, Bogdanovich. Yeah,
because I made that mistake too. Not Brogdon, Bogdanovich.
Right. I cannot be mad at him. I mean, wow. He would a great system, but I think Giannis is very committed to his organization, to the city of Milwaukee, and to his ball players. And first of all, I wouldn't have took that long to sign that deal. As soon as they offered that to me, the Supermax, I would have took it. And and they're gonna do the right thing. They're gonna try to get the pieces around him to fit him and to get him to that championship. But he has to work on his jump shot. I think that's the only thing. The only thing that's missing from his entourage of skills is a jump shot, a mid-range jump shot. Then let's move to the 3-point line. But you just got to keep shooting. You got
if he had a real J. You're talking like if Giannis had a real J, he'd be in the conversation for best player ever.
That's
He's
true.
7 feet tall with
That's
handles.
true, but I mean,
defense.
Just get it to at least 30%, 35%, 15-foot range. I don't think he's at 35%. 15-foot range. I think it's below that. I think it's like 20, 25%. That's all. But I just think
you were a guy who back in the day, you were a guy back in the day. You take 6, 7 threes a game and you hit 35% of them. Like you were one of the forerunners of the modern kind of game. Nowadays, everyone's doing that. But in your day, very few guys did that and hit them at the percentage that you hit them. What made you decide I'm going to shoot from out here?
Well, that's the way the game was at that particular time. To spread it out. Like then we had a big man in Alonzo Mourning, 4 out, 1 in. And we threw it in, and we cut, we moved. So if they go double team, Alonzo knew exactly where we was going to be at. And if they come out and guard us, we know how to swing it. And we swung it to the right people. And that's all we did. We practiced threes every day, 100 threes, 150 threes, 300 threes a day, just to get your rhythm, just to understand, where you're going to shoot from on the court and to make them and be confident to make them. And, at that particular time, when we had Zoe, if we wanted Zoe to go ahead and do his thing down there, they had to be afraid that we was going to make threes. And when we was making threes, then Zoe was down there one-on-one against anybody, and he could kill them. It was nothing that they could do once he was one-on-one against somebody down low. But we practiced it, just not like now. Like you said, we shot 6 threes a game. Bashan shot 6, Mashburn, Jamal, Dan Marley, Keith Askins. We all averaged about 6.
Well, Mashburn's a guy I haven't thought of in a minute, but he could ball too.
Yeah.
Tim, I need to get to other stuff before the segment ends. I want to ask you about your son, Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to say something different because you're here. I say the same thing. I thought early on he's overrated. People are acting like he's an all-star. They're acting like he's his father. He can do a few things, but I don't know. And I got to tell you something. He has become the player I think that people were saying he already was a couple of years ago in my estimation. He can shoot from the outside. He can do a lot of things. His defense has become underrated, the whole thing. And I look at the team he's on. I see guys obviously Luka is a superstar. I think he's going to win MVP this year. I think people sleep on a healthy Porzingis. I think if Porzingis is healthy, he keeps getting better. He's going to be impossible, 7'3", all the things he can do. But even guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber, these are tall, long defenders who can also bomb from the outside. They got Richardson, who's more of a D and 3 guy than a 3 and D guy. But I look at the Mavs, and I'm like, if Porzingis stays healthy, these boys are going to be a problem. Like this year, what do you think about your son's team?
This year, I think my son's team, they have a great chance. I think that if they all stay healthy, that's the key thing, staying healthy. They're going to make hay in the Western Conference. A lot of people don't understand. My son was hurt, a couple of years, and now he's at 100% now, and he's showing his athleticism, his adversity, and what he can do out there on the court, and showing people that he can score, he can take people to basket, and he can be a playmaker too, and he's long and athletic to play defense. So, right now he's healthy, and a lot of people was down on him. A lot of people was like, I don't know, but they don't know that he was hurt. So, and I always told him, I said, once you get healthy, once you become 100%, you're going to be an all-star. To me, you're going to be an all-star. And now he's
a good, by the way, I never thought he wasn't a real player. It's just what he was getting paid versus the production. I was like, I don't know.
Right.
But he's justifying it now. And when I look at,
I can say that about a lot of guys out there that they getting paid and not justified for it. So, I go back and forth with a lot of guys with that, and I can name them, but I'm not going to do that because I'm not like that. But getting back to the team.
Well, I am, Tim. Damn it, I am. I'll name them. That's my job. That's my job.
That's your job. But I tell you this. In Luka, in MVP category, yes. He has a chance to win MVP. I mean, he plays at a different beat than everybody, but we also got to understand he's been playing like this since he's been 13 years old against grown men and playing at a high level since he's 13 years old. And Porzingis, man, you know, if he stays healthy, I mean, the sky's the limit. They all have to stay healthy, and they all have to believe.
Tim, this is what I'm saying about that starting five, right? When I think of that starting five, I'm like, they're playing small ball, but with real size. Like Porzingis got small ball skills. He's 7'3". Kleber's 6'10". To me, that's the best lineup. Luka with the ball in his hands, your son off ball, Kleber and Dorian Finney-Smith in the front court with Porzingis at center. I think that might be the best starting five, or at least the best unit in the NBA of starting fives. If they're healthy, that's impossible.
If they're healthy, that's impossible. You're right. And they got a guy that just came from the 76ers and Richardson. That's going to give them a spark, too.
Richardson.
He's real good. So, yeah, they got a good chance. That's if they stay healthy, and I hope they stay healthy. And if Porzingis is coming back in mid-January, that's going to be the key.
The great Tim Hardaway, ladies and gentlemen, the man who should have been a Knick. Oh, Tim Hardaway, with Allen Houston and Patrick Ewing. The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Got a new team in the power rankings. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776 every day. I say, Raj, I want to get to lots of phone calls today. And he says, Max, forget the people. What do you call them? Commoners, Raj? I resent
something
that.
like that, but that's all right. We'll give them a chance.
I object to that. I say, no, I'm a man of the people, and I want to talk to them. Raj just wants his picture up on ESPN Plus. Wants to be the only other person who talks on the show. Pennzoil synthetic motor oils are made from natural gas. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W30.
No bias.
I really like football.
Just facts.
Don't get it crooked here, what I'm saying.
Max's NFL Power Rankings.
Incidentally, have I mentioned that ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance?
But you just did. Good job, buddy.
Well,
that's okay, but let's get things started.
5.
Number 5.
All right, who'd I have 5 last week?
You had the Steelers dropping all the way down there after a loss. So after another loss, I'm a little concerned. What do you got?
Everyone's overreacting to the Steelers losing. I told you ahead of time. This is the tough part of their schedule. Forget about the fact they have a key part of their defense hurt now. But the tough part of their schedule, and they were messed around with COVID. They had to lose their bye early with the Titans, and then they got a mini bye that was messed around because of the Ravens COVID, and so they played 4 games in 19 days. Not only had they played 3 and 13, they had a short week. They were on short rest, and so predictably they lost, and facing a tough team. Predictably they lost. I was not surprised. And because I told everyone, don't overreact. Where did I have them coming into this week?
You had the Steelers at 5, so that means you're still there?
Right. I told you, don't overreact, so I've dropped them off my rankings. That's right. They're gone.
Who's there then? Who's there? Who you got?
I have the Steelers at 6. At 5, the Los Angeles Rams. Look at the teams that the Rams are beating. They shut down the Patriots. The Patriots were on a roll. Look at teams who beat other teams who are beating other good teams, right? If a team wins 4 out of 5 against good opposition and suddenly they're beaten by another team that's won 4 out of 5 against good opposition, boy, the team that won that game has done something, and that's the Rams. They are really firing on all cylinders now, and as Keyshawn Johnson said it earlier on this show, if Jared Goff's not turning the ball over, that's a tough team to beat. They got a real good young coach. They have at least league average quarterback and a guy capable of doing some good stuff. And a balanced attack with a lot of receivers and some Cam Akers can get it done, obviously. And a defense as talented as any this side of Chicago's. So I got the Rams at 5, and I may even have them a little bit lower.
Okay, maybe a little bit low. All right, and the next one.
4.
Last week you had the Bills. Who do you have for this week?
This week, in a major shuffling of what I had last week, I have the Bills. I couldn't figure out. Yeah, look, the Bills are coming off a good win, and they're a good team, a very good team. And as I keep saying about Josh Allen, not only does he have, the best arm this side of Patrick Mahomes, or the biggest one at least, this side of Mahomes. He's mobile. He's athletic. You can see his teammates will follow him. He's even media friendly and says all the right stuff. This is the guy you want as the face of your franchise. Now, I'd say he's the third best quarterback in the AFC behind Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, and I've moved him ahead of Lamar Jackson. That's how much I think of him. And when you look at the trajectory of his career, touchdown to interception ratio as a 22-year-old, 1-to-1, and they had a bad record. 1-to-1 TD to interception ratio, completed about 50% of his passes. Year 2 as a 23-year-old, 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, and he completed about 60% of his passes. We're in year 3. And he's now 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio as a 24-year-old, and he's completing about 70% of his passes. He's the real deal, and he's trending into a superstar. But I have not been able to move him above 4. And coming up.
Okay, we can't move him. Speaking of that, let's go to... Last week you had the Packers of Green Bay at number 3. Who do we have now, Max?
The Saints fall to 3, and I couldn't skip the Bills over the Saints. And that's because the Saints were upset by the Eagles. You could forgive them for falling into a trap there. The Eagles are awful with Carson Wentz. And now they're starting a backup who's obviously been so bad in practice that he couldn't get on the field, even though Wentz was the worst starting quarterback statistically in the NFL this year. So you could forgive them for thinking, all right, this is a team missing a lot of players, and they're terrible, and they're starting their backup already. But it was a trap. The Eagles have been playing pretty good defense recently, and you saw that against Seattle. They played their guts out on defense, and they did it again against the Saints. But more importantly, by Jalen Hurts simply not trying to do too much, not turning the ball over, not making stupid mistakes like Carson Wentz always does. He turned it over one time because they stood him up and someone punched the ball out. I forgot who already. But otherwise, and there wasn't a lot he could do on that play. Otherwise, he was really good. Didn't throw any interceptions, didn't fumble the ball, had some nice running plays, used his legs to create some threat. So, Miles Sanders broke off a big run as a result, and he completed some nice passes. Other than that, though, the Saints' defense has been ferocious. They've been the best in the NFL over the last month or so. And this is all without Drew Brees, guys. I can't drop the Saints below 3 when they're doing this without Drew Brees and they lose a trap game to a bad team who's been playing better recently. I can't drop them below 3.
So that means the next one is... We know who's number 1. That's the Chiefs. So let's just go to number 2. Who is it, Max?
The Green Bay Packers. And by the way, a couple things just happened. The Packers are now at a game within the Saints. If the Packers can have a better record than the Saints, there's only one bye this year in each conference. Can the Saints go on the road and beat the Packers at Lambeau in the playoffs in the winter? I don't think that's going to happen. It is so important for the Saints to get home field, and they might not, and to get the bye, and they might not, because Aaron Rodgers at this moment, considering that Mahomes threw 3 interceptions, Aaron Rodgers is the MVP right now. I think Mahomes is the best quarterback I've ever seen. But the second best quarterback I've ever seen, the guy who I thought he replaced, and it's close, is Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers is having one of the best seasons of his career. He's now in the second year of a system with LaFleur, and he still has his talent. Aaron Rodgers is, it's he and Mahomes are in their own category, but I can believe Mahomes is better by a tiny little bit, but I can't prove it this year, not right now. Not after the last game Mahomes just had. He still threw for 393 yards, but 3 interceptions? What does Aaron Rodgers have now in the entire season? 4 picks and almost 40 touchdowns? He's having one of the greatest seasons of all time. And when you look at the Packers roster, on defense, they're okay. They're not great. On offense, they have some stuff, but Aaron Rodgers is a lot of the reason the stuff they got look as good as it does. Packers are second in the power rankings, and the Chiefs are still first. Because even when they have difficulty, you just get the feeling that they're bored or that they're playing cat and mouse with the league. Packers might represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Could you imagine a Super Bowl, Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers?
Because I know on first take, I only hear you on the intro and outro.
Now hear Max's last take.
It's your last take today. How many takes you want out of me? Been juicing me for all my takes for almost 2 straight hours. Elliot in Washington, what's your last take?
Max, am I on?
You're
Max,
on.
I called before, what I would like, there's a couple of things. The first thing
Not
is,
off to an auspicious start. Yes.
I would like to ask Roger Goodell that everyone who plays for a year of football, when they sign their contract, their brain goes to Boston.
Boring. Come on, Elliot, let's go. Let's go. Spit it out.
I'm spitting it, man. Okay. When they play, all the brains go to Boston University, so they know what they're dealing with. They don't know what they're dealing with now. It's like tobacco, really. Yeah, they're saying that they want the helmets better and all that. They got to know, do 40% of the guys...
Here's the bottom line. Elliot, here's the bottom line. That's news from Max Kellerman Nation. Max Kellerman Nation. I can't pronounce my own name. Just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line saying that NFL players should donate their brains to be studied after their deaths. I guess it would be after their deaths. I guess because of worries about brain damage from the NFL. Look, tackle football is bad for your health. We all know that. The extent of the brain damage, we don't know exactly, but we know CTE is a real phenomenon. I was skeptical of CTE as an excuse for bad behavior, et cetera, when I first heard about it, but it's a real phenomenon. It exists. Yeah, if you get knocked in the head a bunch of times, same thing in boxing, UFC, by the way, there are dangerous jobs, and consenting adults agree to be compensated for them and do them. I mean, this is when people say that capitalism is exploitative. That's right. That's true. It exploits labor, and it's the worst form of an economy, except for every other form of an economy, right? Other than that, capitalism is just the worst. So the point is that people take risks when they take certain jobs. And there's physical risk in the NFL. It's fair to say that you should know what the risks are exactly. But I think we know at a certain point people knew smoking cigarettes is bad for your health. So is playing tackle football. And I don't know that all the players need to donate their brains. Not only a lot of the people wouldn't want to do that anyway, in order to figure that out. Scott and Tucson, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, how's it going? I actually have a quick question. Before the beginning of the season, the Browns had an odds of 3,000 to 1, so I figured, hey, who cares? I bet $1,000 on the off chance they do win the Super Bowl, man. Am I going to be looking at winning a couple million?
Oh, what were the odds?
3,000 to 1 the day I placed my bet.
No, you didn't get 3,000. There's no way you got 3,000
to 1 odds is what the odds were at the time. And I bet $1,000.
You bet you have a ticket. You have a receipt saying you got 3,000 to 1 odds.
$1,000 bet.
Dude, I hope they win the Super Bowl for you, my man. I can't believe that. Like, how do they get any? Like, that's too much of a risk to take on 3,000 to 1 odds. The Browns had talent, but if you actually got them, if some sucker gave you 3, that's such value. It's ridiculous. And the fact that you had the nerve to put a G down. 3,000 to 1 odds. I put $10 down, right? Like, okay, look at this. I'm going to make $30,000 on a $10 bet. That's why I don't believe that what you're telling me is true. But if you put 1,000 down, boy, I hope I'm rooting for the Browns to win the Super Bowl just for you. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Scott just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line and claims if the Browns win the Super Bowl, he's going to make $3 million. Not a chance.